that they are oversighting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Andrew Omtata Okoiti.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this very, very important amendment. This bill, the County Public Finance Laws Amendment Bill of 2023. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, as summarized in the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons, is a bill that needs to have been there. It's a bill that need not have been there, because this shows that when the National Assembly was enacting the Public Finance Management Act and other laws that govern county governments, it paid scant attention to the issues of how the county governments have to be operating. The county government right now is micromanaged. The county assembly is micromanaged by the governor, and as such, it becomes very difficult for the assembly to have a voice of its own. Because at the end of the day, it needs to go back to the governor for this or that. Much as the law says that a certain percentage should go this way, and a certain percentage should go that way. But if the money comes, leaves Nairobi when it has been put in the various funds, then the assemblies will have their autonomy. The Public Finance Management Act is one act that needs serious attention by this House. A lot of issues in that act are against devolution. And this particular House needs to pay attention to that act, and to also make sure that all amendments that were made to that act after 2013, because the act was made when the National Assembly was the only chamber of parliament. After that, the Senate came into being, and then mischief began playing its part. And many amendments were made without coming to this House, including amendments such as the one that allow proceeds of foreign loans to be kept in foreign accounts, contrary to Article 206 of the Constitution, were made. You have got something that's happening now whereby a lot of money is being stolen through procurement. What you call, they call it specially permitted procurement procedure. The specially permitted procurement procedure that is being used to initiate a lot of procurements that are not proper was initiated through a Finance Act of 2017, which never came to this House, and is wreaking havoc. A lot of things like Adanis and all these things that have come around, if you look at it, it's as a result of the mischief that was done by the National Assembly alone after 2013 to the Public Finance Management Act. They introduced a lot of changes. So, this particular intervention that you are looking at the Public Finance Management Act to try and ferret out the issues that keep counties dysfunctional is very, very important. And I congratulate the Deputy Speaker for having the presence of mind to come up with this bill so that we can begin the journey to ensuring that we have got counties that from design are meant to work. You know, when you look at this particular section of the Act, it's like, Mr. Speaker, sir, I come to your home, I'm from a village, right deep in the village somewhere, I want to answer the call of nature, it's raining, and you tell me, I say, how can I get an umbrella? You say, no, here we don't have to go out there. You can answer the call of nature within the house. We have got a self-contained house. Then I go and I'm able to utilize it. Then when I finish, I say, Mr. Speaker, sir, when I go to my village, I'm also going to set up a similar house. And I'll put a toilet in that house. But to make sure that all villagers know that I have a toilet in my house, I'm going to put the toilet in the living room. I mess up with the design. That toilet cannot be used. It becomes dysfunctional. And that's what we have here. We have a design problem in the counties. The design is faulty, and then you end up with things that cannot work. So we must come back, and this to me is an opening shot, where we need to visit all the legislation that govern counties and see to it that we get the design right so that we can, in the proper way, be able to set up something that can function before we test it. What we have in the counties now, right now, in many cases, cannot function because the design is wrong. The design of having money leave Nairobi into the kitty of the governor, then from there, the county is served, is not acceptable. We must get the design right, and for me, Mr. Speaker, sir, I really congratulate you for this, because here you fix a problem. You get the design right. And once the design is right, things will flow. When the design is wrong, however hard you try, you never succeed. That's why we say the egg, the way it is designed, it can lift a chicken with a curve, but the other side, it cannot lift the weight of a chicken. So let us get the design right. Let us work on this, and I pray that the National Assembly will see the value we have seen in this thing to make sure that we create two autonomous institutions at the county level, whereby the Assembly is independent, the executive is independent, then the question of oversight can become possible. Otherwise, it's like asking your children to oversight their father in his compound. They cannot. The governor remains the big man, the governor remains the boss, and he cannot be oversighted by these people. So I really pray that we will get a way of getting it through the National Assembly, and I want to support what Senator Chesang said, that we may need to identify a partner in the Assembly who can help us see this bill come through. As I conclude, I want to say that it's also important to note that primary oversight is a function of the county assembly. Primary oversight, whereby the budget of the county is held against the implementation of projects in the county, is really a function that county reps, ward reps should be able to, members of the county assembly, should be able to do, because they live in those wards, they pass those budgets, they know what goes to their counties, and they should be able to see if the money is being applied lawfully, using the budget as the marking scheme, and also whether the money is being used effectively. Right now, to wait until the point whereby you get an Auditor General's report to interrogate, sometimes it's too late. You find a lot of things are missing in that report, a lot of issues have been missed, and even if you are to intervene at that time, most of the time the horse has already bolted, and closing the gate does not achieve much. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I really congratulate you for coming up with this bill, and I support this bill, and I pray that this bill sees the light of day. But going forward, as a House, we need to revisit the Public Finance Management Act. It even takes away the power of our own clerk. When there was an amendment by the National Assembly where they created 2 heads for the Parliamentary Service Commission, it has taken away the power of our own, the clerk of this House, as the deputy, as the secretary of the Parliamentary Service Commission. He's basically a figurehead. The powers of the chairman remain intact. The powers of the clerk are taken away by being split into 3 centers. So we need to revisit those kind of things and make sure that the role of the stature of this House is not undermined through legislation. The Constitution is kept, a fidelity to the Constitution is kept, and whatever we do it with the Constitution as our North Star. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, with those few remarks, I support the bill. Thank you.
Senator Mwenda Gataya Mufaya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, from the onset, I want to...
Senator Mwenda, I beg you, as your voice changed in a certain manner.
I don't think so. I'm not listening to myself, Honorable Speaker, but I think this is the way I used to speak. But Honorable Speaker, from the onset, I want to sincerely thank the sponsor of this motion. The sponsor of this motion, Honorable Speaker, will go down in history as the Messiah and Savior for the legislative arm of the county government, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm standing here as a true witness, as a true victim of the level of manipulation, the level of twisting, the level of submissiveness, the level of all sorts of atrocities committed by the executive towards the county assemblies, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in very many instances, Honorable Speaker, I recall when I used to serve as a member of the county assembly. I served as a member of county assembly for a decade, 10 years, Honorable Speaker, 2 terms. And I think I have the necessary information that is supposed to guide this bill, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in very many instances, Honorable Speaker, the so-called CECs are semi-gods in their own right when it comes to dispensation, when it comes to making sure that the assemblies get money that are supposed to be allocated to them from the check, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, to make sure that we strengthen oversight and check on malpractices and excesses of the county government and the governor, Honorable Speaker, the county assembly ought to be independent and autonomous in the operations, and this autonomy, Honorable Speaker, is very, very, very critical. And I'm even wondering why this bill did not find its way to this House 12 years since devolution, Honorable Speaker. Because, Honorable Speaker, we cannot be talking about oversight in the effectiveness of the county assembly, the effectiveness of the county government, without strengthening the very arm of the oversight, Honorable Speaker, which is the legislative arm of the county assembly, Honorable Speaker. You know, Honorable Speaker, it is in common knowledge, Honorable Speaker, that you cannot oversight effectively somebody who is feeding you at will. So, Honorable Speaker, you know, most of the governors, Honorable Speaker, even some of the kind of the impeachment motions that we have seen before this House, it's generated from the defiant members of the county assembly who have decided to make sure that they oversight those governors. In quite a number of county assemblies, Honorable Speaker, most of the county assemblies are very submissive. They are subdued. They are coerced into singing the song of the relevant governor, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, you notice that if you look at the if you look at the National Assembly, if you look at the Senate, the county assemblies are just a replica of the National Assembly. There's just a replica of the Senate, which draws its monies from the Exchequer directory. So, Honorable Speaker, by having this county assembly fund, Honorable Speaker, it is one way of making sure that we guarantee autonomy and strengthen devolution, Honorable Speaker. And I'm happy, Honorable Speaker, because I've been able to go through this bill, which is very broad. It has captured quite a number of aspects where the bill dictates that the clerk of the county assembly shall be the administrator of the county assembly fund, who is in this current form, Honorable Speaker, is the accounting officer. So, Honorable Speaker, the administrator of our county assembly fund shall ensure that the earnings and accruals of the fund are retained in the fund and spent only for the purposes for which the fund is intended. So, Honorable Speaker, the bill has created, it has a lot of safeguards. There's a lot of protection. I think the whole exercise, Honorable Speaker, which is contained in this bill is to make sure that there is some serious element of accountability so that we don't have to have those county assemblies also go overboard, Honorable Speaker. So it's a very noble idea, Honorable Speaker, and I want to sincerely thank you because you are the sponsor of this motion, and I'm happy that county assemblies across the country, including Meru, where you come from, including Tharaka-Nithi, and all other county assemblies, Honorable Speaker, will write your name in history as the person who has really created some elements of autonomy and independence to make sure that that legislative arm of the county government is strengthened. So, Honorable Speaker, this is Senator Mwenda Gataya from Tharaka-Nithi who strongly supports this arrangement. Honorable Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Mwenda. Next is Senator Mwenyi Haji Mohamed Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika pia kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia msaada wa marekebisho wa sheria ya fedha mwaka 2023. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza mimi pia nijiunge na maseneta wenzangu kukupongeza kwa mswada huu kwa sababu umekuja kujaribu kuwapa uhuru mabaraza ya kaunti zetu ambayo yako kwenye minyororo ya magavana katika kaunti zote 47. Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati tunajadili mswada huu, nichukue fursa hii pia kutoa rambirambi zangu kwa mwenda zake Olo Aringo ambaye yeye ndiye alileta ule mswada wa kuidhibiti bunge, yani Parliamentary Service Commission kwa mara ya kwanza, na yeye ndiye alikuwa ni mwenyekiti wa kwanza wa tume ya bunge. Na hiyo ndio imeweza kuipa bunge ule uhuru ambayo hivi sasa sisi kama maseneta na wabunge wanaweza kufurahia kwa sababu ya kazi ambayo alifanya mwenda zake Olo Aringo. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukija katika mswada huu ni kuwa mswada unajaribu kutoa fursa ya mabunge ya county kuwa na mfuko wake kando, yani kuwa na hazina yake kivyake, ili hazina ile iwe inadhibitiwa na bunge la county. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sasa fedha za county assembly ama mabunge ya county zinapitia kwa mfuko wa executive ya county, yani unapitia kwa ile hazina kuu ya county ambapo mwenye kusema pale ni gavana, mwenye kusema pale ni waziri wa fedha wa county. Kwa hivyo mswada huu Mheshimiwa Spika utawapa fursa wabunge wa county assembly kuhakikisha kwamba wanafanya mambo yao kwa uhuru. Mheshimiwa Spika, mara nyingi wakitaka kusafiri ni lazima wasubiri pesa zitoke kwenye hazina kuu. Wakitaka kufanya miradi yao vile vile wanasubiri wapate pesa kutoka kwa hazina kuu. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, nachangia pakubwa mara nyingi wao kufungia macho yale madhambi ambayo yanafanywa na executive katika kaunti hizi. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia kaunti nyingi, malalamiko ni kwamba mabunge yetu ya kaunti hayafanyi kazi yao kikamilifu. Na hii imesababishwa na ule uoga walionao kwamba iwapo wataweza kufanya kazi yao kikamilifu, basi magavana na wale wengine wengi watakuwa katika shida kubwa ya utekelezaji ya ile miradi ambayo inafanyika katika kaunti hizo. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo la jingine nilikuwa nataka kugusia ni kwa sasa japokuwa kuna uwiano ambao unaendelea, yani mediation inaendelea kati ya bunge hili na bunge la kitaifa kwa masuala ya ugavi wa fedha. Mheshimiwa Spika, kaunti zetu kwa muda wa miezi 4 sasa hazijapata fedha, na tumeona magavana wengi wanapiga kelele, wanalia kwa sababu yale mapato ambao wanaokota katika kaunti zao Mheshimiwa Spika hayawezi kulipa mishahara, hayawezi kutekeleza huduma, hayawezi kununua madawa katika zahanati na hospitali katika kaunti zetu. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ipo haja ya kuiambia serikali kwamba watumie kile kipengee cha sheria ambacho kinasema kwamba wanaweza kupeleka 50% ya zile pesa walipeleka mwaka jana. Kama mwaka jana walipeleka 380 billion, 350 billion, zilikuwa ni 385 lakini wakapeleka 355, basi wapeleke at least bilioni 150 ili kaunti zetu Mheshimiwa Spika zisiweze kulemaa kwa ukosefu wa fedha za kufanya ile miradi ambayo imekusudiwa kufanyika. Mheshimiwa Spika, mwisho ni kuwa japokuwa tunajaribu kuzisaidia mabunge yetu ya kaunti ili yaweze kuwa na uhuru, Mheshimiwa Spika, mara nyingi uhuru unatokamana na wale wenyewe wabunge wa kaunti zetu, kwa sababu ikiwa watajiweka rahisi, ikiwa watakuwa saa zote wanafuata vile ambavyo gavana ama vile ambavyo mawaziri wanafanya katika kaunti zile, Mheshimiwa Spika, kazi ya oversight, kazi ya uangalizi itakuwa ni shida sana katika kaunti zetu. Mara nyingi Mheshimiwa Spika, unyonge uko kwa wale wabunge wa kaunti wenyewe, si kwamba sheria haiwalini. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia kazi kubwa wanaofanya kama kupitisha bajeti, hawawezi kulazimishwa kupitisha bajeti katika mabunge yao Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini mara nyingi huwa wana utepetevu na ukosefu wa uhuru ambao inawafanya wao kuweza kukubali yale ambayo yanafanyika bila ya kutoa nafasi ya kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba wanaangalia maslahi ya umma, wanaangalia maslahi ya wananchi katika kaunti zao. Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono mswada huu. Asante.
Asante. Senator Boni Kalwale, Majority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, without looking like I'm repeating what my colleagues have said, you really deserve to be congratulated for this industry. And I will tell you why in the next 5 minutes. Mr. Speaker, there lived a man in this country, and today is lying dead, Peter Castro Oloaringo. I'm privileged to have been in Parliament with him, and I know the difference he made in our lives when Parliamentary Service Commission saw the light of the day. Mr. Speaker, because of this, I would like to use this opportunity to send my condolences to this fallen hero, and especially to the people of Siaya, whom he served so well. I was reading, Mr. Speaker, about his story and how he related to the people of Siaya. And I could see an Osotsi, a man who goes home and people flock into his compound just to ask for small little favors that make a whole difference in the lives of our people. I have always sat in my house, Mr. Speaker, and in my home. And when I give a woman 400 shillings, if I was to do that in Nairobi, people would think I'm crazy. But when I give this woman 400 shillings and she goes and buys uniform for her daughter, the daughter will march on and top at the national exam at Malinya Primary School, at Shikunga Primary School, at Shibuya Primary School, and all other primary schools, including Luhuna Primary School, Simuri Primary School, and it makes a big difference. Mr. Speaker, having said this, I want to persuade you, Mr. Speaker, I want to persuade you. What you are querying is you want to make the counties independent. But in the structure of this proposal, Mr. Speaker, you are making them independent from the governor, and you have created a monster in this law called the administrator. They will now become slaves of the administrator, in this case, the clerk. The clerk, using this act, Mr. Speaker, if we don't improve it, will do what he likes. And our MCS will have to dance to his tune. Mr. Speaker, I beg you to read from the establishment of the Public Service Commission vis-a-vis the establishment of Parliamentary Service Commission. We borrowed one from the other. Similarly, when we established the County Public Service Audit, Mr. Speaker, we were informed by the Public Service Commission. So I want to propose that further, when we go to the committee, the third committee, the third reading, Mr. Speaker, I'll be proposing that we amend, Mr. Speaker, the following. We amend 109A in subclause 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for this reason. That everywhere you have put the word administrator, Mr. Speaker, I will be requesting you, and because this is your bill, you should agree, I'll be requesting you that the word administrator, we replace it with a county assembly administrative board. In this county assembly administrative board, Mr. Speaker, which replaces the administrator, then the speaker of the county assembly becomes the chairman. And the clerk is the CEO. And the vice chairman of that board to be one of the county assembly members. Then both the opposition in the county assembly and the majority in the county assembly will propose an equal number of people, the equivalent of our commissioners. Mr. Speaker, can you imagine the clerk controlling billions of shillings? How powerful it's going to be? And only the clerk as an individual then talks with the control of the budget, the two people, and they can actually withdraw anything up to including 1 billion shillings. And given that this is a fund, it means that the money going into this account will not go back to the National Treasury. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, there's a possibility that at one time you could get billions of shillings into an account to be controlled by only one man or one woman. I'm requesting this House that this is not a responsibility we can put in the hands of one person unless that person is Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Mr. Speaker, I say this knowing very well that your intention is to make MCAs stronger, you make them independent, and you want to strengthen the oversight role. If this is the case, why then are you strengthening the clerk instead of strengthening the institution of the county assembly? Mr. Speaker, my final contribution to this very important law is as far as clause 109B is concerned, where I say that the fund shall be used for those reasons A, B, and C. I want to propose, Mr. Speaker, that we add D, where D will be that the fund will also underwrite development in counties. So if they are only doing administrative, where will the development that is required in county assemblies come from? Are you telling me that after we have formed this fund, Mr. Speaker, and now you want to build a new county assembly, as we do in Kakamega, or you want to do major renovations in the county assembly, you go back to the county executive? That would be the wrong way of doing law. So I propose that we add subclause 109BD to address this. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, allow me to make one running comment on the state of counties vis-a-vis how our governors and MCAs are working. There has never been greater deceit in this country. There has never been an opportunity for greater connivance to steal as what is happening in some of our counties, Kakamega being one of them. Mr. Speaker, in my county, we ran a project running into billions, Mr. Speaker, the so-called the 10-mile per ward project. And Mr. Speaker, millions of shillings were sung in, and when you go to Kakamega, There is no single 10-kilometer road project that is complete in any ward. Mr. Speaker, our MCAs, especially in Kakamega, have been reduced to cheering squads. You go to a public function where you are sharing the platform with the governor, like in the case of Vihiga, where young Osoti has expressed interest in running for governor. Mr. Speaker, the MCS will not even wait for Osoti, if it is in a funeral, to say, my name is Senator Osoti, and I have come to pay my condolences. They just start wailing and booing. And because, like in Kakamega, some of the MCAs who are really vulnerable to this kind of are our nominated ones. So you see that they are actually hysterical. So I got one, if I mention her name, I'll be put to task, and ask her, why are you doing this? And she told me, my brother, things are so difficult that I was given 3,000 shillings. So for 3,000 shillings, an elected, especially an elected leader, screams herself hoarse just to earn that 3,000 shillings. I will do this for Mama Imbosa in Kakamega. Mr. Speaker.
You want to be informed by Senator Beatrice Ogora?
Beatrice is always very informative. I welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just needed to inform the majority whip and my senior that the state of the elected is more worse in the counties because, Honorable Speaker, the elected MCS have a duty to deliver to their wards, to their voters. So they are literally lining up in the offices of the executive, lining up and following up the CECs and actually begging. So if the nominated senators are blowing vuvuzela, the elected leaders are worse off. That is just the information that I was giving you. And just to build up onto what you are saying, the majority whip.
I thank you for that information. I thought it was happening only in Vihiga and Kakamega. Now there you go. It is happening in Homa Bay. Mr. Speaker, I'm congratulating you and vowing on this floor for the sake of the devolution family and as a champion of devolution that I am doing this so as to help Mama Imbosa, nominated MCA. When she told me it was 3,000, I felt so sorry. I knew they are truly suffering. I'm doing this for my cousin, MCA elected, Cyrus Moyeya. I feel so sorry when I see him. I'm doing this for Agedis Liai, my MCA in Idaho Central, Mr. Speaker. The guy is a huge guy who weighs around 150, 200 kilos, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry, Senator Boni Karwale, must you describe or mention their names in this floor?
Mr. Speaker, unless...
And also describe their physical appearance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm guided.
No, you should not do
Mr.
that.
Speaker, I am guided, but this is so serious because they are doing this at the expense of oversight, to the extent that today, as I speak, there is no single contractor on site anywhere in the expansive Kakamega County, all the way from Matungu to Likuyani, a distance of over 200 kilometers. There is no contractor on site. Mr. Speaker, I'm doing it for the sake of my contractor from Mumias, who last week got a stroke because of pending bills. If only we had a strong county assembly, the pending bills would be being interrogated in the county assemblies. They would not be waiting to come to pick and pack here in the Senate. Let's take this law very seriously so that governors can stop being little kings. Some have started even moving to want to become kingpins. Mr. Speaker, I congratulate you, And I just wanted to inform you that I have an idea why the voice of Senator Mofire has changed. Mr. Speaker, it is deeper, it is louder, it is authoritative. I didn't know that these things can happen by rapping on or osmosis. Where is Mofire? He has left. And Mr. Speaker, by extension, the one of Thangwa has become thinner and frail. I'll talk to them, they tell me why these contracts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Oburu Odinga.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like first of all to take this opportunity to congratulate you for being very, very insightful and also being foresighted in bringing this bill. Mr. Speaker, I am a veteran in this parliament. I have been in this parliament for over 30 years. And Mr. Speaker, I can tell you that there is one time when this parliament was fully dependent on the OP. We had to, our budget was done through the office of the president, and we were fully dependent on them and the treasury. The oversight role that we were supposed to play, Mr. Speaker, was done through, sometimes we had to blackmail the treasury in order for them to release some money for us, to refuse to approve the budget, do all sorts of, put all sorts of pressure on the executive. And yet we were supposed to be oversighting them, but they use that budget, they use that hold, because they hold the purse, those who hold the string of the purse call the shots. And they use that to make sure that the agenda goes through. And that time, Mr. Speaker, we were not supposed to even oversight the budget. The budget itself was banged on us, those huge documents, and we were not able to scrutinize them. Mr. Speaker, my one of my former members of parliament, Honorable Oluwaringo, who is now late and is still lying in state, did a great job for this country. He did a great job. There were many others who supported him. We all supported him, but he did an insightful research. He did a lot of research and came out with proposals on the way forward. But that time, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you there was a lot of resistance from the executive. It took a long time of struggle. It was not for one person. It was the whole parliament. We were fighting to get our space. We were fighting to get our space. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we managed to get a budget committee, which was hived off from my committee, which I was chairing. That time I was the chair of Finance Committee. Mr. Speaker, when it was hived off, we had a budget committee. We were able now to scrutinize the budget before it is brought and banked. We were using colonial laws, which only allowed us to deduct 20 shillings, which was £1. That is the only thing you could deduct from the budget as Parliament. So Parliament was actually held at ransom, though we were called oversight in quotes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you are giving the counties something for which they have not struggled as long as Parliament did to get the Parliamentary Service Commission, the Budget Committee, to be able to scrutinize the budget. Mr. Speaker, this bill which you have brought is going to enable the National Assembly members to have some little bit of autonomy. Though, Mr. Speaker, that autonomy will not come until you also do something else. We also do something else. Maybe somebody else should take up this matter. I don't think I have that energy now to to take up the matter, but I'm advising maybe Honorable Sosi, take up this matter. The Salary Review Commission is actually making it very difficult for county assembly members to oversight the executive. Because if you look at the pay slip of the county assembly members, it is peanuts. And yet they are oversighting somebody who is getting over 1 million shillings in a month. And for them, they are getting something less than, far less than 100,000 shillings, Mr. Speaker. And if they take the deductions, I looked at the pay slip of one of the members from Nakuru. He came and tabled it before our committee of devolution. Mr. Speaker, I said this is one way of disablling members to do the oversight. Mr. Speaker, you cannot do oversight when you are actually suffering pecuniary embarrassment. The amount of money you are getting is peanuts, and we must find a way of dealing with this issue of remunerating the county assembly members properly. But this will not be part of this bill. This bill, Mr. Speaker, I support what Honorable Halwale has suggested, that we carry out an amendment not to make a monster out of the clerk. Mr. Speaker, if you give one individual, to be the one controlling, and you remove it from the county executive, you will remove it from the county treasury, and then you create another monster in the assembly. It will not do good to the county assembly members whom we are targeting to empower so that they can properly oversight the executive. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I hope you are going to consider that proposal by Honorable Halwale. And I just stood up, Mr. Speaker, to support what you are doing, and it is a great job. It is following some history, and I hope that this is one of the cornerstones of our role of strengthening devolution, and we are going to do more. I saw a committee of this House negotiating in a joint with the National Assembly on the funds. Mr. Speaker, that kind of negotiation which is going on is portraying that this assembly, this Senate, is actually very serious on strengthening devolution, because we cannot oversight the county executives if they don't get proper allocation of money. We must first make sure that money goes there, and then we follow it to see that it is properly implemented in the service of our people. So, Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity, and I fully support this bill with the amendments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next is Senator Dulo Fatuma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me join my colleagues in congratulating you for having come up with this legislation. It's long overdue, and I hope it's going to cure the challenges that we have in our counties. Mr. Speaker, I like the proposals that you have made in this particular legislation, and more specifically on the way that the board should be constituted, and again also as far as the clerk being the administrator of the fund. But in that particular one, I'll have to give a rider to proposal made by Senator Halwale, in that we normally see that there is a lot of a fight between the clerk and the members, and also the speaker, as far as budget utilization is concerned. And if those powers are going, Mr. Speaker, to be given to the clerk, then members of assembly are going to be irrelevant. And your proposal is to empower the members of county assembly. And I believe the proposal made by Senator Khalwale is valid. Wherever there is administrator or utilization or removal of the budget for any purpose, Mr. Speaker, I will propose in consultation with the board. That is the only way the clerk should be able to use the money. And in that way, the clerk will be accountable to the assembly, Mr. Speaker. Because in practice, the clerk is the employee of the assembly. And the speaker the same way. But looking at the salary given to the speaker and the salary given to the clerk, Mr. Speaker, is nothing comparable to salary given to the county assembly members. If I can give an example of my county, you can imagine a speaker earning 500,000 Kenya shillings, the clerk earning 400,000, and county assembly members earning 200 plus. These are employees of the county assembly members, and yet they are earning more than them. Mr. Speaker, I will propose also, as a house, we must do something about the salary of the county assembly, because you cannot oversight or employ somebody who is earning more than you. He will never respect you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, chief officers, CECs, they are all earning more than the county assembly members. Mr. Speaker, that is ridiculous. We must do something about the salary of the county assembly members. Mr. Speaker, the other proposal that I wanted to make is where you actually indicated utilization of the budget for emergency purposes. Mr. Speaker, we have to be specific. What are those emergencies? Because if you don't do that, county governments are already misusing the budget allocated to them under emergency. And in this particular case, if we are not very careful, there could be duplication of the same fund for the same activities. So it has to be specific on what they should spend on as far as budget is allocation. Mr. Speaker, county assemblies are living in a very deplorable situation. Mr. Speaker, if I may speak of my county, Isiolo, last week, some county assembly members came out and condemned on certain payrolls, Mr. Speaker. Can you imagine the governor colluding with the speaker and the rest of the members to remove them from all the committees of the House, to suspend them for 6 months, one particular member, from the House? Mr. Speaker, it's ridiculous, it's unacceptable, and there is no way, Mr. Speaker, these members can be able to oversight if they are actually running after governors to give them support. Mr. Speaker, these guys are on the ground, and they are the ones who are actually facing the challenges on the ground, where members of public are turning to them for school fees, for medical, for many other things. And yet, they are beggars running after the governors whom they should actually oversight. Mr. Speaker, to some extent, the budget currently allocated to them, the governors and the speakers collude and actually steal the money from county assembly. And this particular bill will solve that problem if it is going to be assented to. Mr. Speaker, I will urge the county assembly members, really, if this is what you wanted, and I know my county assembly members, they have been crying for this. If this is really going to be a solution to your problem, and the problem of Kenyans, where they are actually, as Senator Khalwale says, in a public baraza, the best they can do is to say that the governor is doing the best, even when they are doing zero on the ground. Mr. Speaker, they have really embarrassed us. They have embarrassed members of public. When they are supposed to carry out their oversight, the best they can do is, oh, Senator is doing our work, while this is our work. Which work are they doing apart from clapping for the Senate, for the governors, and begging them and pressing them? Mr. Speaker, I pray and actually urge county assembly members, if this is a solution to their problem today, and you have come with a solution which is something that is actually gracious in this country, Mr. Speaker, let it be. Let it solve the problem of embezzlement of funds in our counties. Like today in Public Accounts Committee, Mr. Speaker, and I think this matter should come to the House also. There's a trend that has been developed by the governors. They are refusing to appear before all the committees of the House. And I'm telling you, one after the other, they are taking the cue. Mr. Speaker, we are becoming irrelevant. They are disrespectful. I remember I was being told the day before yesterday that one governor, and I'll be specific to the governor of Isiolo, when he was told that your CECs are not gender balanced, he said, yes, they are not gender balanced. What is going to be done to me if I didn't actually balance the gender in my CEC? That is the extent where people are becoming, actually, they don't care about the law in this country. Mr. Speaker, this House must wake up. We must have a solution to the challenges we face in our counties. They are actually disregarding the laws provided in this country. And I think the law is there actually to regulate. But if somebody says, I don't care what the law says, I will do what I want, then I think, as I've said earlier on record, that this House is irrelevant as far as I'm concerned, and that is what the governors believe. I hope we are going to get a solution to this problem. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next is Senator Beatrice Ogola.
Honorable Speaker, I want to join my colleagues in thanking you for the wisdom in the bill that we are discussing today. And I want to state from the onset that this should have happened long time ago, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the role of the Senate is very clear in the Constitution, that in Article 96 serves to protect the interest of the counties. Honorable Speaker, the mention of the governments, and that is county government, is not only limited to the executive arm of the government as stipulated in the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, in passing this bill, the Senate of the Republic of Kenya will have actually put devolution to work. Honorable Speaker, I happen to have served in a county government structure, and specifically as an executive. And so I join my colleague, Senator Mofaya, who served in their county assembly, in sharing the experience that county governments have over the running of funds. Honorable Speaker, the earlier speakers had mentioned that county governments, and in particular treasuries, line up at the Controller of Budgets offices every other month and at the National Treasury in pleading for approvals and for funds to be sent to the counties. Honorable Speaker, that is not just a saying. I was a CEC in the county government of Homa Bay, and every month, the county treasury would camp at the National Treasury. It defeated the purpose for which devolution was voted for by Kenyans. And Honorable Speaker, even the devolving of the office of the Controller of Budget to the counties did not make it better. Because from the experience and observation that I had, Honorable Speaker, it looked like the devolved Controller of Budget at the county just joined the executive and worked hand in hand with the executive as if they were one and the same thing. So, Honorable Speaker, we have all along as the devolution family sympathized with the county assemblies over this republic, that each month when the county treasury had received funds, then now it was the time of the speaker, of the clerk of the county assembly, and the budget share committee to now line up at the county treasuries. Because it is only the county executive, the county treasury, led by the CEC of finance, that now had the key to unlock when the county assemblies were going to get their monies. And it is on this strength, Honorable Speaker, that I want to support this bill, and that the counties, in getting the county assemblies to have their funds, Honorable Speaker, we will only be strengthening the separation of powers. That the county assemblies oversight the executive, the county assembly does a representation role of their wards, and the county assemblies also do legislation. But Honorable Speaker, how then can they accomplish these constitutional functions if they are not having their monies and are not in control of their monies, Honorable Speaker? Honorable Speaker, even at the budget time in the counties, the county assemblies are on the receiving end. They have to negotiate with the executive on how much they can be given. They have to negotiate with the executive, and it is as if the county assemblies only accept what they are given by the executive. And so, Honorable Speaker, I support this amendment. I want to agree with the majority whip that let us not go with the clerk as an administrator, that let us place this funding to be run by the board as constituted in the county assembly. But I want to add a voice to this, that the clerk then should be given a functional role, precisely which can be an accounting officer of this fund, rather than have him as an administrator, Honorable Speaker. In getting the clerk to be an accounting officer, we will be giving a function to the office, and of course overseen by the board of the county assembly. So the board will have a macro role in the running of the funds, but functionally the clerk will be an accounting officer that is answerable to the board of the county assembly, Honorable Speaker. And so, Honorable Speaker, this accounting officer can then go ahead to perform all the functions that you've laid down, that includes even ensuring that the fund is not overdrawn. Honorable Speaker, earlier here there was a discussion of the controller of budget. The question I keep on asking myself, that I asked myself then when I was working at the county government, and I keep on asking myself today, even as a senator, is that why did the controller of budget devolve the office of the controller of some of his functions? And then the counties now have an officer called the county controller of budget. Why then do officers of the county still have to travel to Nairobi to get the same approvals? If the controller of budget officer the county has approved, and he duly works on a day-to-day with the county treasuries and oversees the running of funds in the sectors of the county, why then do we still have the CEC finance, or the chief officer of finance, or the county accountant camping at the national treasury or at the office of controller of budget? Honorable Speaker, I support this bill. Some of the laudable clauses we have is that the county assembly, in having gotten those funds, will make financial reports to be submitted to the Commissioner of Revenue Allocation. And of course, you have stated that it should be copied to the Controller of Budget. I support this because these are good practices in good governance, that they will be making reports and they will be copying the Controller of Budget. This then means that the initial requests that the county assemblies made can be compared by these constitutional commissions to ensure that the guidelines are being followed. I also support that the clerk, who should then be an accounting officer, may authorize a staff to incur expenses, of course, following the guidelines as stated in the bill. Honorable Speaker, the county assemblies, as any other government, have structures. They have a finance officer, they have an accountant, county assembly accountant, and so it is well that the accounting officer may authorize some of those officers to incur expenses. Honorable Speaker, the other aspect that I support, get their funds later by the 15th day from the commencement of the month. You have rightfully put that the county treasury shall in the same way also disburse the funds to the county assembly fund. Honorable Speaker, if this is adhered to, the county assemblies will run with efficiency and they will be more effective. Because often, more times, Honorable Speaker, their activities are disrupted because of lack of funds. If they will be running their funds, they will be having their work plan, they will be planning for their funds, and they will be having their activities that are done at the right time. Honorable Speaker, the county assemblies a number of times are not able to perform their duties, including public participation, which is also spelled out in the Constitution, which they must do, sometimes of certain county bills that is before them, a number of times even on the budgeting processes, a number of times even the policies that are presented by the county executives. I remember, Honorable Speaker, when I was a CEC of energy then, and I had a policy on renewable energy that took a long time, even when the county executive had approved it. And basically because the county assembly had no funds to run their public participation. Honorable Speaker, it meant that my committee then looked up to me as the CEC to fund their public participation. And Honorable Speaker, those are the kind of issues this bill is trying to address, that the committees of the assembly would be autonomous, the committees of the assembly would be independent, and it is until then, Honorable Speaker, that the work of the county assemblies will be beneficial to our people. I also realize, Honorable Speaker, that the Controller of Budget, it spills out in the bill that the Controller of Budget will have access to the bank accounts of the county assembly if their funding is independently set aside. And this will not be limited to the county assembly only, but to the county executive and any other county entity that will be running any funds. Honorable Speaker, I support this because this is only helping to ensure that there will be efficiency at the county assemblies. Honorable Speaker, the main thing that we need to ensure by ensuring that the county assemblies have their money is autonomy and independence, Honorable Speaker. I wonder if today, if our funding, even in Parliament, would be controlled from elsewhere, would we be able to run our calendars? Would we be able to accomplish what we are doing as Parliament that the people expect us to represent them. This is the kind of mess and the kind of limits that the county assemblies have had. By passing this bill, Honorable Speaker, the Senate will have entrenched devolution. The county assemblies will stand out. I probably think, Honorable Speaker, that the lack of this bill has necessitated the county assemblies to behave and to operate as if they are an appendage of the county executive. Because how else would they operate, Honorable Speaker? My colleagues have stated and used, even under desirable terms, Honorable Speaker, some of them very moralizing to entities like county assemblies, when we see as parliament that county assemblies now are reduced to beggars, that they have to beg from somebody. Honorable Speaker, if you have to beg to somebody, they give you the terms. And so, let us pass this bill, Honorable Speaker, and let us ensure that county assemblies run as envisaged in the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, as I support, I also want to add my voice to the issue of salaries of the members of the county assemblies. Honorable Speaker, we all go and we appreciate, even elected senators here are always at their counties. But Honorable Speaker, let us bear with the situation of the MCAs, that they are closer to the people, they are always with the voters. So Honorable Speaker, if you give them the kind of salaries, and I want to state in this House, that was a push that was made by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Initially, at the onset of devolution, the salaries were at par. But you have a speaker who is elected by the members of county assembly that has no voting block other than the members of the county assembly in the county assembly hall, and you give them twice the salary of elected leaders who have to represent their people and have to be at the wards every other day. Honorable Speaker, that is not an acceptable situation. The members of the county assemblies relate with the voters every other day. Just as we do, Honorable Speaker, they solve all the problems from the social to economic and all kinds of problems that our people have in the wards. The Salaries and Remuneration Commission must reconsider what salaries and benefits that members of the county assemblies are entitled to. And Honorable Speaker, let us also think about the ward funds, that we have county assembly MCAs who are elected by the people, but have no funds at their disposal to serve our people. And so, Honorable Speaker, I applaud you. This should have been done like yesterday. I urge members of the Senate that this bill will entrench the role of the Senate as stated in Article 96 of the Constitution. And Honorable Speaker, as I sit down, I would like the governor of Isiolo to take note that the issue of gender balance is a constitutional provision. And it is not at his whims. He might be having powers to shout and chest stamp as he does. But the issue of gender balance is an issue that is constitutional, that was spelled out by the great people of this republic. And he has no option but to adhere to it. And I call on the Senate, let's oversight that governor and let's ensure that the people of Isiolo are served as per the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Okay, good. Senator Mugeni, Elik.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to also make my voice heard on this bill that proposes to make county assemblies independent. Mr. Speaker, I want to begin by thanking you as the author of this bill, and the people of Meru should know that you are your bill will contribute a great deal to stopping the fights that we have seen from the county of Meru between the governor and honorable MCS. Because, Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt that once this bill is enacted, and I don't think there is any senator who will be in opposition, we shall have peace in the county of Meru. Mr. Speaker, at times, MCS don't like to be beggars. And that's what brings friction between members of county assemblies and the office of honorable governor. So we want to thank you. This bill will not just benefit the people of the county of Meru, but it will also benefit all the 47 counties of the Republic. We thank you, Mr. Speaker, and our contribution will be fully to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, we want to see our county assemblies getting the stature that is in other countries where we have devolved system of government. Mr. Speaker, last week you saw the way the newspapers reported the election of Ulda Momanyi as a member of the State Parliament of Minnesota. It made news here of Minnesota. I hope, Mr. Speaker, that our government, this broad-based government, Mr. Speaker, will now build for us Suneka Airport. If not, Mr. Suneka Airport. If not, Mr. Speaker, the people of Nyamira are ready and willing to create, to donate land to the national government to build an airport for us. This lady will rise to become a senator and maybe the first female president of the United States of America, just like Obama did from our neighboring county of Siaya. Senator Galwale, this lady will rise to become a great person in the United States of America. So we congratulate her, Mr. Speaker, and I want to make a special appeal to other Kenyans who have migrated to other nations, those who are in Australia, those who are in the UK, those who are in Canada. They should borrow from the example of this young lady. Go into the political space, seek for elective offices, Mr. Speaker. The political space, seek for elective offices, Mr. Speaker, and they make our country proud. We are going to organize a big homecoming for our daughter, Mr. Speaker. The way Obama was received in Siaya, the people of Nyamira must also receive their daughter in the great county of Nyamira, Mr. Speaker. I invite the senators, when we bring her home, we will slaughter bulls, goats, chicken, matoke will be served in plenty. And before that happens, Mr. Speaker, we shall send a delegation to Minnesota to go and congratulate our daughter who has done us proud. I hope next time we'll be celebrating a daughter from our neighboring county of Kericho or the great county of Kakamega, Mr. Speaker. That's how we want it to be. We want Kenyans out there to shine. So this bill, Mr. Speaker, is something that is dear to many of us. Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, you saw the kind of chaos that we had in the county of Nyamira, Mr. Speaker, where the members of county assembly were trying, or they tried to impeach their speaker. That didn't work. And the house of an honorable MCA from Bomagwamu ward was set on fire, Mr. Speaker. It was set on fire. A guard, a watchman, guarding the premises of the county assembly of Nyamira, was attacked, beaten, torched. I mean, the people who attacked him tossed him with paraffin, and he has been nursing injuries at the Nyamira Referral Hospital. Because of this idea of a governor who wants to have members of county assembly to be at his mercy, Mr. Speaker. That's not what devolution was meant to do, Mr. Speaker. Let's borrow the structure that we have. Mr. Speaker, our Parliamentary Service Commission is detached from the executive. We don't go begging from the executive, Mr. Speaker. We appropriate our money, Mr. Speaker, and we run our affairs. You can imagine, Mr. Speaker, a situation where anytime members of county assembly want to make a payment, they have to go and beg at the county treasury, Mr. Speaker. And if you are not in good books with your governor, you'll be on the queue for a long time before your bills are settled. And how do you get into the bad books of a governor? Try to oversight him. Try to put him on toes, Mr. Speaker. And if you get others who will tell you that their human air can never be shaken, I don't know how to put in quotes, if you permit me, Speaker. I don't know how to translate. My governor says, tu kitari konyagera. Tu kitari konyagera. Like nothing can make his human air to shake. He tells MCAs when they are asking, why is there no medicine in hospital? He tells them, tu kitari konyagera. Meaning my human air cannot be shaken because people have lacked drugs in hospitals. Mr. Speaker, people go to hospital, they want to just get services, treatment. Clinical officers are on strike. He tells them, my human air will not shake in my head. Because he thinks he's controlling all the money that goes to Nyamira is meant to go to his own pocket, Mr. Speaker. So if this bill passes, Mr. Speaker, there will be that separation and financial independence of county assemblies so that they can properly oversight the office of governor, Mr. Speaker. The other day, and Senator Cheruiyot knows, our farmers in Nyamira and our neighboring counties of Kericho, I know in Meru you got good bonus. Mr. Speaker, I'm also a farmer. Me, I was paid per kilo, 20 shillings. 20 shillings, Honorable Galwal. Where do you get money to pay the guy who has been tilling your land for the whole year? There is fertilizer. You need to pay. From that money, you need to pay school fees. From that money, Mr. Speaker, our wazirs need to wear a nice suit, like the one you are wearing, Mr. Speaker. Others need a nice counter suit, like what Honorable Nyonka is wearing. That 20 shillings is nothing, Mr. Speaker. But my governor says his human air will not be shaken because farmers are being paid 20 shillings. You can imagine, Mr. Speaker. So I hope this bill can get the support of our brothers from the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. We fast track it, it gets enacted as soon as possible so that we lay a basis of true independence for our MCAs. Let them receive their money. Let them budget for it, Mr. Speaker. Let them use it to oversight our governors so that, Mr. Speaker, the money that we send to our counties can have meaning to the 7 basic rights of a human being. Let our people get water, Mr. Speaker. Let our people get medical attention. Let them go to hospitals and get drugs, Mr. Speaker. Let them have roads, Mr. Speaker. Let us have good markets for our people. Let us improve sanitary, Mr. Speaker. The 7 basic rights of a human being so that we can have happiness from the people we represent, Mr. Speaker. And I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, that there are good accountability measures that have been proposed in this bill through the Office of Controller of Budget. So we should not have fear that our MCAs will misuse this money. Clause 119 says that the Controller of Budget shall have viewer rights access to all bank accounts maintained by the county executive, the county assembly, and all other county government entities. So there is good mechanisms in ensuring that this money will be used for the intended purposes. Let us not allow these prevailing situations for now where MCAs are at the mercy of our governors. I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, that the administrator of this fund, there will be a fund equivalent to what we have as members of National Assembly and Senate, as that's the entity called Parliament, Mr. Speaker. So I fully support this bill, Mr. Speaker, and I also want to support the initiative that was put in place between His Excellency, the President, and the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. This afternoon, Mr. Speaker, I've seen a transmission of names for appointment to various independent constitutional offices, and I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, that at least I've seen names of people from Momogusi Nation, Mr. Speaker. I've seen the name of Dr. Onyego nominated to serve in IPOA, and that's what we want, Mr. Speaker. We want this government to serve all the 47, I don't know that we are 45, ethnic, 42, all the 42 ethnic communities, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure if Dr. Kalwal will go through the names, you will see somebody from the Luya Nation. I'm sure Cheruiyot from Kericho. We'll see somebody from Kericho. And I'm sure there could be a name from Meru, all the bigger Mount Kenya region, and others. And that's what we want, Mr. Speaker. Let us all feel that there is a sense of belonging to this government. And I'm appealing to His Excellency the President, now that we have promoted Honorable Professor Kindiki to be our deputy president, and there are those 2 vacancies for CS. With the performance of Hulda Momanyi in the USA, Minnesota, Mr. Speaker, the county of Nyamira should also be considered, Mr. Speaker, for a position of CS, Mr. Speaker. As we speak now, imagine, I don't have a PS from the county of Nyamira, Mr. Speaker. I don't have a CS. Let us appreciate, Mr. Speaker, that the people of Nyamira have demonstrated that they have talent to serve, not just in Kenya, but they can even serve in America, Mr. Speaker. So we are appealing to the President, Mr. Speaker, not to forget the people of Nyamira, Mr. Speaker. We have even produced renowned runners, Mr. Speaker, from the county of Nyamira. So we are pleading with His Excellency to continue this spirit of having a broad-based government, so that when he's picking his next set of cabinet secretaries, he can also remember the great people of the county of Nyamira. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Okay. Last but not the least, Senator Onyonka Richard.
Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to also say a few things about this bill. Mr. Speaker, I am actually extremely excited with the Senate as a House, because we are now becoming proactive. Many of us have been raising the issues and discussing why the county governments and indeed the county assemblies look like they are all operating in a dysfunctional manner that is deliberately skewed to make sure that members of the county assembly do not get a working environment that is comfortable for them, that is going to be responsive to the needs of the public, whereby even sometimes their salaries are actually delayed, Mr. Speaker, and not because the money has not been released by the exchequer, no. It is because you find that the governor, once the members of the county assembly are beginning to plod and investigate some of the things which many of our governors are doing pertaining to financial mismanagement or management, Mr. Speaker, the scenario you have is that the governors sometimes have ended up being punitive, where they actually sometimes don't release the salaries of many of these members of the county assembly, where they have even sometimes delayed the release of funds which the government has issued for these members of the county assembly to even buy cars and even get mortgages for themselves. So this bill is good. It is going to cure one of the issues that we've been struggling with as a House. And I'm very proud of you, Mr. Speaker, just like my colleagues have said, that it's a bill which is thought out. The only aspect that I saw is when Honorable Sosi raised the same issue that I was going to raise, and that is that we do not necessarily need the controller budget to give the permission for the money to be transferred into the new account that is going to be set up within the county. Somebody to leave Kisii to head to Nairobi to come and believe that once you control the money, then it's very easy for you to control the members of the county assembly, so that they can actually deliberately start playing. There's no oversight. The governor walks around with members of the county assembly singing and saying how he's doing a wonderful job, and yet you find there are no medicines, there is no running water, the roads which are being done are done poorly, And Mr. Speaker, it's another matter that I want us to discuss at soonest time possible is that some of our governors, like in my governor, Mr. Speaker, has brought in Chinese people who are cutting trees the whole of Kisii County. The Assembly has not sat to decide whether they would have authorized such an activity to take place. As we speak, the Department of Environment has not told us what their forest cover is. And Mr. Speaker, you remember the President pronounced himself. He said we are no longer exporters of raw materials. Mr. Speaker, the Chinese have come. They are cutting the trees and putting them into boxes where, Honorable Boni, they cut the trees into small pieces, put them into something that looks like containers, and they take them to China so that they can put into some other process of value addition, and they are shipped to Europe and America as if it is African wood that has left the African continent. Soon, we will then start mitigating and discussing how Kisii County has become desertified, how the trees have been cut, and I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, the information I have is that these Chinese individuals who are doing this are from Molo. They ran down to Bomet County. They are in Kericho County. They are in Kisii County. I'm told they are moving to Homa Bay. They have gone to Trans Nzoia. And I'm told, Mr. Speaker, that they are going to be in Uasin Gishu. You can imagine what such things mean to our country. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope that this House will be engaged so that we can the responsibility of having ward funds which are directly going to be released to their wards, whereby the money again does not need the governor's interruption for the funds to be released. So long as the CIDP, Mr. Speaker, has passed and the money is in the consolidated fund electronically, the sub-county accounts, the sub-county procurement officer, the sub-county county government workers can then be now happy that at least funds are coming to the local level where these funds need to be. And I believe that this House has carried itself with the dignity it requires to the level where I believe that Kenyans are willing to give us the support to make sure, Mr. Speaker, that we keep changing the law effectively and we make sure that we close out the loopholes which, for example, have made the PFM Act nearly become obsolete. Remember, we rely on IFMIS as our financial platform. There are also challenges with that. We are having a shortfall of our exchequer releases from the Treasury. We need to sort out that issue because, Mr. Speaker, we should not have many of our county governments. If the funds are not released from the Treasury, can't we ask what are we supposed to do about it? With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you very much. I support this bill, and I think it will go a long way to cure what many of us have been asking is cured. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
At this juncture, I will call the mover to reply. There is no other senator interested to debate on this bill. The majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, sir, and jointly the sponsor actually of this very important bill, I want to celebrate your work. I did this only because I felt the need to actually assist you, having done the heavier task of coming together with a bill, of just doing the initial moving of the House to debate. And the record 28 senators have spoken.
Majority leader, you did not do anything wrong. I know you are also very passionate.
Yeah.
You are passionate on this bill.
Thank you.
And therefore, I can also decide to call you a co-sponsor if you talk to me nicely.
Thank you.
So that the bill can also bear your name.
Mr. Speaker, in my moving notes, you're not here. I said that this is justice to the county assemblies because in 2016, at the Pride Inn Resort, I think it was a Pride Inn, if I'm not wrong, we had the inaugural legislative summit, which is a summit that brings together members of the county assembly and the Senate. Part of the takeaways from that summit, Senator Onyonka, is that we're going to do this for our county assemblies. It has taken us a freaking 8 years to do this for them. It's completely unfair. I really hope that we can conclude on this, preferably tomorrow. I didn't see any of the whips of the minority side, but I see Senator Alwale is here. I'm sure they have their own caucus of whips of the Senate. if they can rally numbers so that tomorrow afternoon we put this to a vote alongside other bills, Mr. Speaker, so that we can conclude on this, put together the amendments that are needed, Mr. Speaker, and before we break on recess, have the National Assembly begin considering this bill, so that at least if there's any chance, Mr. Speaker, that our colleagues in the National Assembly can equally be pushed, and I will personally take the initiative to prioritize on this bill, Mr. Speaker, it will be extremely important, so that at the very worst, this be the last financial year, Mr. Speaker, that members of our county assembly have to withstand this very embarrassing scenario that has been described here. This is not the devolution that the late Dr. Crispino Odhiambo envisioned for this country, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure when they sat down as a technical committee that worked on the chapter of devolution in our constitution, Mr. Speaker, they expected better. This is not what they expected of our county assemblies. I know there is a lot more even that they didn't expect on the executive side. While we fix the executive, Mr. Speaker, we must also aid our county assemblies to perform their duties without any hindrance, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I want to thank you. I thank all the 28 senators that have spoken to this bill, Mr. Speaker, and believe that their contribution has not been in vain. When all is said and done, Mr. Speaker, we will all look back with pride and say, when we write our exit report of the 13th Parliament, as members of the 4th Senate, Mr. Speaker, we will proudly put this and say this is one of the hallmarks of our legislative work, Mr. Speaker. And I believe when we resume, I don't know why we haven't had any so far, our legislative conferences with our members of our county assembly, we will be proud of this job that we'll have done by then. I therefore thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank all the colleagues that have spoken to this, and appreciate. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply. Finally, Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order number 66.3, I beg to request that the putting of a question be deferred until a later date. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Majority Leader. So now we go to the next order. Clerk. Yes. The question will be, we are deferring the putting of the question on this bill, maybe possibly until tomorrow. Next order.
Order number 11, the Environment Laws Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 23 of 2024, second reading, resumption of debate.
I am advised, I'm aware that the Senator for Garissa County, Senator Abdul Haji, and requested this bill to be deferred until the next sitting, or any other time that it is allocated in time for debate. So we go to the next order.
Order number 12, motion, report of the Mediation Committee on the Water Amendment Bill, National Assembly, Bills at number 33 of 2023, resumption of debate.
On this one, I can see there are no senator or senators interested to debate, so I will call the mover to reply if he is around. This is the report of the Mediation Committee on Water Amendment Bill. Yes, proceed and reply if you are leading. Majority Leader.
Speaker, I am aware that at the time of going on recess, quite a good number of colleagues had spoken actually on this amendment and the various considerations that are being proposed, Mr. Speaker. It is my hope that that captures the gist. Many of actually colleagues who spoke to this bill, or to this report, Mr. Speaker, of the Mediation Committee were in support of the proposed amendments, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want to appreciate them too for the time that they took to speak on this particular report, Mr. Speaker. With those very many remarks, I beg to reply. Mr. Speaker, I would beg to request that in accordance with Standing Order number 66.3, the putting of a question be deferred until a later date. I thank you.
Yes, the putting of the question has been deferred until the next sitting, possibly. So we go to the next order. Clerk.
Order number 13, motion, report of the Select Committee on County Public Investments and Special Funds on its consideration of the audit reports of the water service providers for the year ended 30th June 2019, 30th June 2020, and 30th June 2021. Resumption of debate.
Also, on this motion, there is no senator or senators willing to debate, so I request Senator, the Chairperson Committee on County Public Investments and Special Funds to reply. So you will reply during the next available time. Therefore, honorable senators, using standing order 45-2, we defer order number 14, and then we go to the order number 15. Vice Chairperson.
Order number 15, motion, report of the Mediation Committee on the National Rating Bill, National Assembly Bills, and number 55 of 2022.
The Vice Chairperson, Mediation Committee, or any other member who has been assigned the responsibility. Senator Mbitri Sogoro, proceed.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I was a member of the Mediation Committee, and so thank you for giving me the opportunity to move the motion. This was a motion, a report of the Mediation Committee on the National Rating Bill, National Assembly's Bill number 55 of 2022, that the Senate adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the National Rating Bill, National Assembly's Bill number 55 of 2022, laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 30th October 2024, and further that pursuant to Article 113(2) of the Constitution and the Standing Order 167(3) of the Senate approves the mediated version of the bill.
You can say something on the bill because you are a member, because you know the content of the bill.
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, the Mediation Committee, as I said in my opening remarks, Honorable Speaker, the report contains the Mediation Committee on the National Rating Bill. Honorable Speaker, the committee held 4 meetings to consider the clauses of the bill that were under mediation. And Honorable Speaker, we arrived at a mediated version of the bill. As I move this motion, I want to also applaud the objectivity that was observed in our meetings to the office of the Speaker, the speakers and clerks of both houses of Parliament for the logistical and technical support that was accorded in the execution of its mandate. I want to express my appreciation to members of the committee as constituted by the 2 speakers, the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Honorable Speaker, their sacrifice, the endurance, the commitment to the assignment that we had, which enabled the committee, Honorable Speaker, to complete this task within the stipulated time. Honorable Speaker, the mandate of the committee is stated, we derived the mandate from the provisions of the article, as I've stated. We had, as I said, 4 committee meetings to deliberate on the National Rating Bill. And during the first meeting, as is procedural, Honorable Speaker, The committee elected the Honorable Joash Nyamache Nyamoko, HSC MP, as the chair, and then we also elected Senator John Methu Mihia, the current chair of the Lands Committee, to be the vice chairperson, respectively person to Standing Order 166-4 of the Senate Standing Orders and Standing Orders 149 of the National Assembly Standing Orders. Honorable Speaker, I present to the House the clauses that were under mediation. The following clauses of the National Rating Bill, National Assembly Bill 55 of 2022, were considered by the Mediation Committee. The Senate Amendment Clause 2. Honorable Speaker, the term occupier as inserted means in relation to rateable property, a person who is in physical possession of premises or a person who has control over the premises. Honorable Speaker, to give a short background of this bill is that the issue of valuation has been a challenging area, especially in the county governments, Honorable Speaker, that there have been inconsistencies in counties over how rating is done when valuation for property or valuation for land is done across the counties. That you'd have a property valuated differently, but generally over just the same sphere in another country. For example, a piece of land would be valued at thousands of shillings, while in another country there's a different figure, and yet environmentally there is no difference. And so we had areas that, of course, after the bill went in the Senate, the National Assembly was not in line with us. So on clause 2 and over, the definition of occupier, the Mediation Committee considered the definition, and after deliberation, Honorable Speaker, we resolved not to adopt the proposal that was from the Senate. Honorable Speaker, you know mediation is a give and take. The basis of this was that the clause of the bill already clarified the definition of a rateable owner, Honorable Speaker, making it unnecessary, after our discussion, to provide additional clarification within the definition of an occupier. So, Honorable Speaker, the other contested issue was the valuation role, but this, after deliberation, Honorable Speaker, we adopted the proposal as was submitted by the Senate. On this same clause, the National Assembly was not consistent with the Senate on the definition of the chief government valuer. But after deliberation, Honorable Speaker, what the Senate had proposed took precedent. Because, Honorable Speaker, we felt that in valuation, and in order to have a harmony across the counties, we needed to create an office that is professionally backed up to ensure that all the valuation activities of the counties are harmonized across the country. And that is why we had proposed as a Senate committee that we have the chief government valuer. Finally, the Mediation Committee agreed with that. The second clause that we considered was clause 12. The Mediation Committee deliberated and resolved to adopt the proposed proposal as submitted by the Senate by inserting the words, the Council of Governors, immediately after the words, National Land Commission. Honorable Speaker, the Senate Committee, following up on the constitutional spirit of consultation, felt that we had to insert the Council of County Governors to be consulted across all the clauses. So we have in subclause 4, in consultation with the Council of County Governors, immediately after the words, the Cabinet Secretary. So the Cabinet Secretary, in the spirit, as I've said, of consultation, must consult with the Council of County Governors in valuation, in making decisions of valuation, whether in setting guidelines or regulations, Honorable Speaker, because it is until then that the interests of the counties would be taken in. The Mediation Committee deliberated and resolved to adopt the proposal as submitted from the Senate with the following modifications. That is just to repeat, inserting the words, the Council of Governors. Honorable Speaker, I then go to clause 20. It's still following the spirit of consultation that I have referred to earlier. So the Mediation Committee deliberated and resolved to adopt that proposal as submitted from the Senate with the following modification. Honorable Speaker, earlier, members of the National Assembly were hesitant for us to have the Council of Governors consulted at all levels. They felt, Honorable Speaker, that the Cabinet Secretary would just make decisions on their own. But we felt the body of the Council of Governors would be a rallying point for consultation with our county government. So on that, the committee considered the proposal from the Senate to remove the requirement for the Cabinet Secretary of Lands to review claims for contribution in lieu of rates and resolved not to adopt it. However, the committee recommended and resolved on an amendment to the existing subclause to clarify the role of the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Lands, as follows. Honorable Speaker, on subclause 6, that there was reference that after valuation would have been done by county governments, there was a supposed reference that then the county governments, having finished their valuation, would submit these reports to the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Lands, who would then further review before submission. Honorable Speaker, we felt that that review would imply that the Cabinet Secretary was going to be given powers to even alter some of those rates. So after mediation, we agreed that the role of the Cabinet Secretary only after the counties had done their ratings, the only role of the Cabinet Secretary was not to review before submission, but basically to transmit that to Treasury for payment. Honorable Speaker, there is then the clause 5030 of the mediation bill. The committee deliberated and resolved to adopt the proposal from the Senate as proposed with a modification to delete subclause 3 of clause 30 and insert the subclause 3 as subclause under the proposed new clause 30A as followed. Honorable Speaker, there is clause 32 of the bill we agreed that we would be deleting the word tabling, appearing immediately after the words County Assembly for, and inserting, therefore, the word approval. So the main role of the County Assembly would be, is not only limited to tabling, but also to approve it. Honorable Speaker, in subclause 6, we inserted the word for consideration appearing immediately after the word tabling. And to mean that the County Assembly, once the rating has been done, of course, by the County Executive, the County Assembly, and it is tabled for approval in the County Assembly, it is clear the County Assembly shall within 60 days of submission under subsection 6 and by a resolution approve or reject the draft revolution roll or draft supplementary valuation roll. And where the County Assembly, Honorable Speaker, fails to make a resolution within the period, the draft valuation roll of draft supplementary valuation shall be have been deemed to have been approved, Honorable Speaker. The committee, so in conclusion, in that clause, and deliberated, and we resolved to adopt the proposal as submitted from the Senate. Honorable Speaker, we have clause 34. It still refers to words of county government. The committee deliberated and resolved not adopt the proposal from the Senate in its current form. However, the committee resolved to redraft the subclause 6 of the bill to introduce a new provisions that establishes procedures for handling objections after the valuer has received them. Honorable Speaker, this clause gives the comfort where a valuation would be, an objection would be raised on evaluation. Honorable Speaker, the valuers having done their work, we might have a situation where there's an objection. So we needed to get a way in which this would be treated. So a valuer who receives an objection under that subsection 5 shall review the objection and submit a response to the County Executive Committee member within 60 days. It then spells out that the County Executive Committee member shall, upon the receipt of that response of the valuer, constitute a county valuation board and submit a response to objection to the county valuation board for determination. Honorable Speaker, we agreed that we would not have a standing committee that would be drawing probably benefits, but we agreed that the County Executive Committee member would create an ad hoc county valuation board when a need arises and a time frame is given upon which that can be reported back to the County Executive Committee member. This board, referred to as a County Valuation Board, is established under Section 6A, and it shall hear and determine the objections, communicate the decision of the board in writing to the objector and the rateable owner and the County Executive Committee member and the valuer. There is a provision, Honorable Speaker, that where a person is not then satisfied, then this, Honorable Speaker, under subsection 6C, subsection B, an appeal may then be made before the tribunal as established in that bill. Honorable Speaker, there is Senate Amendments Clause 56. The committee deliberated and resolved to adopt the proposal from the Senate with the following modifications. That subclause 1, by deleting the word may appearing immediately after the words, the Cabinet Secretary shall, in consultation with the Council of Governors. Honorable Speaker, the National Assembly, as I had said earlier, was uncomfortable with the Senate introduction of the consultative spirit with the Cabinet Secretary. But after long deliberations, we agreed as a mediation committee that we would have consultation with the Council of Governors done by the Cabinet Secretary in all areas where the Cabinet Secretary has functions attributed as in the bill. So, Honorable Speaker, the committee deliberated and resolved to adopt the proposal from the Senate as proposed with the following mediation, the following modification. That follows again in subclause 2, and it only emphasizes that spirit of consultation that we have referred to. Honorable Speaker, I bring you to clause 24A, where there's reference of the chief government valuer. The committee deliberated and resolved to adopt the proposal from the Senate as proposed within the following modification. The reference is made of a chief government valuer, that there shall be a chief government valuer who shall be the principal advisor to the national government and county governments on all matters relating to valuation. Honorable Speaker, as I had stated earlier, we needed to have harmony in the way valuation is done and in the way rates are applied, that the chief government valuer does not only serve the national government, but it is an office that is alike what we call the National Land Commission that was created to serve both two levels of government. This chief government valuer, Honorable Speaker, we go ahead, that will be appointed by the Public Service Commission through a competitive recruitment process. And we go ahead to actually indicate the qualifications of that chief government valuer. Some of the qualifications, Honorable Speaker, are not only limited to academic qualifications. Of course, the chief government valuer must be a citizen of Kenya, must have a minimum of bachelor's degree from a university recognized in Kenya, either in land economics, real estate, or any other related field. Honorable Speaker, we agreed as a mediation that this is a very high an apex in this profession of valuation. And so, Honorable Speaker, we indicated not only the years of experience, Honorable Speaker, but these years of experience, I want to convince my colleagues that they come about because of the years spent in the hierarchical growth in this profession. That for you to have been a chief valuer, you must have been a head of department in that, of course, in that skilled area. You must have held some positions, either county positions, other director position. And Honorable Speaker, this is basically just to preserve, to protect this profession, so that these two levels of government are able to get the best Kenyan that will be able to give direction on areas of valuation and areas of rating, so that there'll be harmony across the 47 county governments, with the one national government, and so Kenyans will be able to get the right services from this top officer that will be serving both levels of government. We also added that it must be a full member of the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya, chapter on valuation, and in good standing. Honorable Speaker, we have had officers who are at very high levels in this country, but are they in good standing with their professional bodies? We felt as a mediation committee that we need a professional that has good records from their professional bodies. And lastly, Honorable Speaker, we needed the chief government valuer to be an officer who meets the requirements of Chapter 6 of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, this is a constitutional requirement. And if you are going to oversee valuation, if you are going to oversee rating all over this republic, county governments are going to look up to you for guidelines. Of course, Honorable Speaker, guidelines that the chief government valuer will not have made himself, but will have made in consultation with the county governments and all the professional bodies. This officer, Honorable Speaker, must meet the requirements of Chapter 6 of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, we don't want to end up with an officer who will abuse the rights of Kenyans. And so we thought this must be part of the qualification. And so in Chapter 24A, they established the office of the Chief Government Valuer, who, as I have said, Honorable Speaker, will be recruited competitively by the Public Service Commission through, as I say, a competitive process. He will be the principal advisor on issues of valuation, on issues of rating. Honorable Speaker, I've indicated in this House that I happen to have worked in the county government of Homabay, and my first posting was as a county executive committee member in charge of lands, housing, fiscal planning, and urban development. I dealt with the complex issues initially of the houses that were transferred from the different local authorities. Specifically in Homabay, that was housing from the southern Nyanza, of course now in Homabay, the then Homabay County Council. Honorable Speaker, we had houses as big as 3-bedroomed houses, 2-bedroomed houses on their own plots. But Honorable Speaker, it was a pity some of those houses were being charged 1,000 shillings. So then how are the counties going to raise revenue to sustain even the servicing of these houses? But our actions were limited to the fact that valuation had not been done for a long, long time. And so you could not even review those charges without a valuation that was done. We had houses for the national government and houses for the county government, and that is uniform in all the other county municipalities. Honorable Speaker, this bill will deal with some of those challenges. County governments have also dealt with the challenge of even getting a valuer to value pieces of land when they are going to acquire land. And basically because, Honorable Speaker, the example I give is a county where I come from, and we had one valuer, government valuer, that was servicing the whole of Kisii County, Nyamira County, Homabay County, Migori County. And you had to chase him all over the place, and yet we are valuers graduating from the university. But even when county governments employed these valuers, there are certain responsibilities they cannot take because of lack of harmonization of rating. And so, this chief government valuer is going to set guidelines that will be rolled down and will be undertaken by county governments. Honorable Speaker, there's the new clause 30 A. This refers to the supplementary valuation role that the county government shall, in preparing a valuation roll, rely on data or information that was used in the preparation of the valuation roll to assign values to be adopted as the properties contained in the supplementary valuation roll. Honorable Speaker, the committee deliberated on this, and where the county government has reason to believe that a supplementary valuation roll needs to be prepared, the county government shall cause a supplementary valuation roll to be prepared where necessary. Honorable Speaker, the Chapter 3 refers to recommendations that the committee have made. There's Clause 34, Clause 36, and Honorable Speaker, as I move this motion and request the majority whip to second it, I want to say that the mediation committee was seamless. We listened to each of the committee members. We were led well by the chairperson and the vice chairperson, and because of the objectivity, we were in agreement of a number of the clauses. And so, Honorable Speaker, I move this motion and I request the majority whip to second this motion on the national rating bill that will help us to solve a number of the challenges that Kenyans and particularly county governments have undergone. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Beatrice. Senator Boni. Give Senator Boni the microphone. Not yet, Senator Halwale. Clerk, move to the dispatch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the chairman, Madam, of this committee, Senator Beatrice Ogola, as she has moved the national rating bill in that particular version. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, allow me to congratulate the committee of this House and together with the Committee of the National Assembly, when they came together as a mediation committee led by the Honorable Joash Nyamogo and deputized by our colleague John Medhu Muhia, they have done a very good job. And Mr. Speaker, allow me also to congratulate the nominated senator from Homa Bay for ably moving this motion. Listening to the young lady, Mr. Speaker, it forces me to congratulate her party, the ODM, seeing her ability in this particular discourse. It is a case for other political parties to always use a very high standard in giving special elected seats to members, because listening to Beatrice, you clearly see that she adds value to business in this House, and definitely by extension, I hope, back home in Homa Bay. Mr. Speaker, as I second this motion, I always think back on how members of the public in this area have forever remained vulnerable. Because ordinarily, when you want to exchange property, and Mr. Speaker, you are relying on a valuer, you have no idea the criteria they use to rate your property, your premises, and so on and forth. But that this law is moving into that direction, we are protecting members of the public more and more. Whereas we are trying to standardize rating across counties. But I'm alive to the fact, Madam Chair, Beatrice Ogola, that even when you go to Homa Bay itself, within Homa Bay, you can move from one sublocation to the other, and a property which is comparable, you are given totally different values, and you are always left at loss. Probably you wanted to use this rating to access a loan, and somebody from this sublocation has a better rating than you who comes from the other sublocation, and yet you come from the same county, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank this particular industry, and because Senator Beatrice Ogola has painstakingly taken the House through this report by speaking to clause by clause, as discussed in the committee, I am not going to belabor it, but, Mr. Speaker, use this opportunity to urge my government to ensure that we employ more valuers. Members of the public, Mr. Speaker, when they want services of valuer, it's very difficult to access them. A big county like Kakamega, for example, you find that we have to queue for a very long time for Mr. Edwin Odwor, our valuer, and you'll find that the time he was doing it, he'd gone to neighboring Kisumu to also do some work there and so on. So because our university keep on churning out graduates, we should give these young people an opportunity to get employment so that members of the public have access to this critical service. Mr. Speaker, sir, I second.
Now, Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the Senate adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the National Rating Bill, National Assembly Bills number 55 of 2022, laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 30th October 2024, and further, that pursuant to Article 133, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution and Standing Order 167.3 of the Senate, approves the mediated version of the bill. Now, honorable members, I will, for those who are interested in contributing to this particular motion, allow your contributions, and I will start with the Senator for Nandi, Senator Samson Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity, and also to welcome you back. I'm aware you were on official parliamentary tour of looking into elections of US. I want to take this opportunity to thank and congratulate the people of United States of America, Mr. Speaker, and specifically to applaud the election of the 45th and 47th President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, and wish him well as he serves, and I hope he will give policies that will be of help to Kenya and across the world, specifically our Haiti mission that we are having to assist the Haiti and the agreement that we have had, and many other that President William Ruto went to the United States to engage. I hope that engagement between the U.S. government and the Kenyan government will continue to benefit, Mr. Speaker. In fact, as His Excellency Donald Trump was being elected to the office, there was a hashtag that the current U.S. envoy, Megan Whitman, should leave the country. But, Mr. Speaker, to be fair to her, she has been very supportive to the Kenyan government. Mr. Speaker, is one of the ambassadors who have marketed Kenya than any other special envoy or high commissioners to this country. So I want to request Kenyans to give her a break. She's doing a lot. And Mr. Speaker, there is a misnomer in this country that when you are an ambassador, you must work with the opposition of government. That is not true. Any ambassador to this country must work closely with all Kenyans, both government and opposition. So the people who want to start hashtag on Twitter or X against the US ambassador are being unfair, Madam Speaker. And therefore, there is a song on the street that said, waende wasikie vibaya na huko kwao. Mr. Speaker, I know to Senator Beatrice because she's the one, but at least she gave a try, and we are proud of women. We hope they will be inspired. But I always knew Donald Trump would win because I have been to America on several occasions and I know the ground. Uanaskiza ground. Mr. Speaker, in quick succession, because I'll take 2 minutes, is to support, congratulate Senator Beatrice Ogola for ably moving this mediated version of national rating bill. Mr. Speaker, I'm privileged to serve in county public accounts. One of the biggest, and this should, the senator of Kakamega should note, that as we talk today, the Kakamega county government, Lamu, Nandi, and many other county governments, including Bomet, do not have a complete asset register that gives rise to valuation roll. The definition of valuation roll, Mr. Speaker, sir, is for the local taxation to value property, where you are using rating to value those property to allow you to, Mr. Speaker, the reason many counties don't meet the targets of own source revenue is because they don't have a complete asset register. They don't have valuation roll because they don't have an asset complete register to allow the valuation to be done on those properties and allow the county governments to levy either local taxation or charges or fees, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I would also request this committee that they should also recommend that the Transitional Authority by Kinuthia Wamwangi in 2013 and the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee should fast-track the transfer of assets and liabilities to county governments to allow them to have complete asset register and therefore, Mr. Speaker, to give them rising to valuation role, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, it has been a challenge. Even as we discuss, Mr. Speaker, the cutting of and I'm happy the Finance Committee of the Senate did refuse the cutting down of money that goes to county. Because as a Senate, we have proposed through division of revenue, and we did pass overwhelmingly to 402 billion. The amended division of revenue that came back from national, they wanted to slash it to 380 billion, way below 385 billion that we suggested last year. The only hope, and that is why in fiscal discipline and responsibility in counties, we have already encouraged them to do own source revenue. The only way to ensure counties maximize on own source revenue is passing this national rating bill, the mediated version, get them to have, through the intergovernmental technical relations, Mr. Speaker, get them valuation role so that they can rate their property and valuate their property to be able to rise up to the revenue, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and also the intergovernmental technical committee should also come on board. Mr. Speaker, when you go to most of the county hospitals, and I want to pass my deepest condolences to Longisa, to the parents who lost that child. It is heartbreaking. I would have expected my friend, the governor of Bomet, your governor, to have taken decisive action. Mr. Speaker, if you need any help of this house, and I expect that hospital, in fact, that hospital should not be called referral. It should be closed. Because if the baby is dying, because parents cannot afford to pay money, Mr. Speaker, it is so tragic. And that incident that happened, I would have expected the CCM of Health, CEO, and any other person who is in charge of that to have resigned out of in good faith, out of morality. And the governor should have fired like yesterday. And I'm happy you led yourself and the members of parliament from Bomet County. And if it is possible, Mr. Speaker, if they don't take action, we can support the parents. The Committee of Health of the Senate can come and visit Longisa and cross-check. And even, Mr. Speaker, write to Kenya Medical, KMPDU, for action against those officers who did not do their job. Because I agree with Senator Ogola, has talked about professionalism. In fact, those nurses who allowed that child to die, should have their licenses cancelled by Kenya National Union of Nurses to show seriousness. And that is why even in valuers, we are saying, even in Senate, we have said ISPAC members who give us adverse opinions when they are doing the auditing after the Office of the Auditor General must be punished by being struck off in ISPAC and getting their numbers. The nurses at Longisa Hospital who are on duty, including the chief nurse, should lose their license of practice for not giving that medical attention, Mr. Speaker. And our prayers and thoughts are with the family, and you can convey our deepest condolences. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of
what is
violation role.
Point of order, Senator Beatrice. Allow Senator Beatrice for an
Honorable Speaker, why would the senator of Nandi, a student of Professor Tom Ojienda, be surprised when Professor Tom Ojienda is in Addis Ababa accompanying Baba himself,
Senator
when Professor Ojienda is an outstanding member, Senator of Kisumu County, and in the spirit of broad-based government? Why would you limit Professor Tom Ojienda?
Senator Beatrice, you've made your point, and that is not a point of order. It is actually a point of information, which I believe Senator Cherargei has noticed and probably taken it up as information as to why the Honorable Professor was part of the delegation in Addis Ababa. Senator Cherargei, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I conclude,
Senator Boni.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the rule of relevance. Could the Senator of Nandi help me understand the relevance of what took place in Longisa Hospital? Very unfortunate. Its relevance to the matter at hand, national rating. Could you help me?
Senator Cherargei, please proceed to give Senator Boni relevance of the comments as regards what transpired in Longisa Hospital and the motion that is being debated.
Mr. Speaker, the reason I brought up the issue of Longisa Hospital is because, one, this house is sensitive and alive to other matters that happens, because we are leaders. Number two is that I wanted to drive the point home on the role of valuers, that Senator Ogola has highlighted the requirements of you being employed. One of them is that we must get approval from relevant professional body. That is why I brought the relevance that the nurses who derelicted their duty should lose their license, just like valuers or government valuers who don't do their job. That was how I was driving my point home. But Senator Kalwale, Mr. Speaker, you know, I saw him on the weekend hosting the president, and the prayers were being done. And he didn't speak anything about prayers, but he spoke about building a road from Nairobi to Malaba because it's congested. At that point, it was not relevant to the event of the day. But I'm happy he made his point. And that is the relevance I was bringing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue of chief government value, even as in Nandi, the reason people, and I agree even in Kakamega and Mutembei and Kisumu, please, I want to appeal to county governments. I don't see the need why we should push national government to higher valuers. There are many young people, Mr. Speaker, who have graduates of valuation, learn economics. They are all over, Mr. Speaker. And before you buy any property now, as a conveyancing lawyer, and I'm happy Professor Tom Ojienda wrote about the book called Principles of Conveyancing as an author, which, Mr. Speaker, he forced us to read through in quotes. He forced us. I don't know whether he wanted to sell the book or he wanted us to get the knowledge. Mr. Speaker, in the principles of conveyancing, valuation is very critical, and rating of valuation of property, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, there are many valuers. I want to appeal to county governments. These things of depending on national government to give you chief government valuer, to also there is another person called physical planner. You only get, for example, in North Rift, we get in Eldoret. Yet there is Nandi, Wazingishu. Why does the county governments don't hire these professionals? Why don't we have valuers? Senator Kalwala have pointed out very critical that when you go to townhouses that my sister referred to, you still get townhouses, and I'm not saying they should charge more rent. They are charging 300, 500 shillings because the last time they did rating of those houses was 19 Ketichini, when even the exchange rate of $1 was even to 20 shillings or 50 shillings. So county governments must ensure, and I'm happy that the public service will be the one doing the appointment of chief government valuer, and the public service commission, Mr. Speaker, should, and I want to insist, even as they do approval of chief government, they should always be observing interns. Mr. Speaker, you know we have started a not a very good culture by Public Service Commission where they get young people to go interns, train them, then throw them on the street. I thought since we use government resources and money, we should absorb those young interns so that we don't experience problems where we see with Gen Zs, Mr. Speaker. If government has given you an intern for 6 months, they have trained you, they have given you capacity, why would they throw you back to the streets? They should start a process of absorbing them into the system so that we can ensure that. Mr. Speaker, I'm the cognizant and the fund that Professor Tom Ojienda is an ODM member, but you know I was surprised that he's also on the technical team of AUC bid of Raila Odinga. But you know, I've not, Mr. Speaker, on a lighter note, I'm yet to receive endorsement from Senator Kalwale to the bid of Raila Odinga, Mr. Speaker. Maybe he has said in Kiluya, but I hope he will say it in English and Kiswahili and in a national platform so that we hear the bullfighter taking ill bullfighting to AUC and endorse Baba there, Mr. Speaker. In conclusion, the issue of supplementary valuation role is very critical, especially when it comes with finance bill that goes to the counties. I agree that the county assembly must approve going into the future, Mr. Speaker, so that it becomes easy and raising, Mr. Speaker. On this national rating bill, Mr. Speaker, with those very, very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, this is a good mediated version of the bill. I hope we will pass it, Mr. Speaker, allow counties and national government to do rating, so that, Mr. Speaker, you know, when we wanted to introduce, or when the National Assembly tried to pass the Finance Bill 2024, I have seen the proposal of a number of taxations, which does not affect local mwananchi, to raise 170 billion to fill in the gap of deficit. And I request the government, as we raise 170 billion, let 20 billion be returned to the allocation to counties to go back to 42 billion. So, Speaker, some of the taxes that were supposed to be introduced in finance bill did not have even relationship, Mr. Speaker, with the local mwananchi. Some of them were carbon tax. Some of them were eco tax, where when you have this phone, the iPhone or Samsung, when it expires or when it is obsolete, how do you reintegrate or how do you destroy? That was why in the Finance Bill 2024, we wanted to introduce eco-tax. Eco-tax was targeting the people who manufacture phones and cars and electronics, Mr. Speaker, that were used to ensure that when it reaches a point, Mr. Speaker, you can have opportunity, Mr. Speaker. So we want Kenyans to understand, and I hope with the national rating, we shall be able to resolve some of these problems that we are facing, even assisting financial institutions, assisting governments and individual Kenyans. With these very many remarks, I want to congratulate the committee that did the mediation version and hope when it comes to voting or revision, Mr. Speaker, we should pass it so that we can allow counties and national government to do rating of property and allow complete asset register, valuation role, and allow fiscal discipline, and allow national government and county governments, more so county governments, which we are protectors under Article 96, to raise and ensure they meet targets of on-source revenue within the raising of revenue within counties. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support, and I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cherargei. Before I allow Senator Professor Tom Ojienda to give his contributions, I want to assure you that your messages of goodwill and condolences to the family of the lost child from Langisa will be delivered by yours truly, and two, to equally assure you that the quick, immediate media responses and radio appearances of abuse by those who are supposed to be responsible shall not deter the leadership to get to the root cause of the situation. Thank you. So, Senator, Professor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate that when Kenyans, or many Kenyans see me, they see me as a politician, but they ignore the fact that I have a technical aspect as a law professor, and I'm also bilingual. I speak and translate French, and that is not known to many people. I'm also a student of international law, and a Pan-Africanist, having served, Mr. Speaker, as the president of the Law Society President of the East African Law Society and Vice President of the Pan-African Lawyers Union with offices in Addis Ababa, and having worked largely with the African Union on many matters. So I think these are aspects that my learned friend and Senator Cherargei for Nandi did not know. Now, we support Baba from the heart, and it is in the interest of this nation that Baba is elected as the AUC chairman, and we must do all that we must with the region so that with the Arabophones, the Francophones, the Anglophones, and the Lusophones to ensure that this seat comes home. And I think it is our collective effort. And you know what the president is doing. The president is resolute in his support for the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. Yes, so Galwale, I encourage you. Mr. Speaker, I just want to speak to the National Rating Bill, Assembly Bill number 55 of 2023, and the mediation report that has been submitted by the Honorable Beatrice Akinyi this evening. Mr. Speaker, the mediation committee, under Standing Orders 149 of the National Assembly and 166, and Articles 112 and 113 of the Constitution, did consider the various issues. And I'm glad to report this, Mr. Speaker, that under the previous Rating Act, Cap 66, 266, and the Valuation for Rating Act, Cap 267, we had a framework for valuation of property and a framework that allowed limited time for objections. And it is true when Senator Cherargei says that some of the properties were valued long ago, and it is because of that variance in time that many property owners have found themselves on the receiving end when the Rating Act and the Valuation for Rating Act, Mr. Speaker, have adopted a framework that has increased taxes in certain areas up to 100%. You find, Mr. Speaker, that in certain cities, and because I know that many counties have tried to revise rates, rates have jumped from even 10,000 shillings to 1 million shillings. That's what the previous, as I said, the time frame under the previous Cap 167 and 166 are provided, that the framework proposed in the National Rating Act by appointing a central authority that will only receive approval through the minister is welcome. The CS is welcome. Number two, the creation of a county valuation committee to receive objections and the 60-day period that is contemplated in the new revised law, Mr. Speaker, is welcome because, number one, it will give rateable owners of rateable property sufficient time to object and to engage with the process of increasing rates. And Mr. Speaker, that is important because a 60-day period that's proposed is sufficient time for objections to be made and for an attempt to be made by the CC lands or CC finance for the county under the new framework, and for the party objecting to appeal to the tribunal, because the tribunal also creates a framework for fair administrative justice in conformity with Article 47 of the Constitution. That was chaired by Member of Parliament Nyamoko, who chairs the Lands Committee in the National Assembly, and John Methu, who chairs the Lands Committee and Land and Environment Committee in Senate. Mr. Speaker, the other aspect that I support, and I must state this, is that the chief government valuer, as proposed, though I see the qualifications are a basic degree, I would have preferred that an additional requirement is made to the proposed section 24B, and not just a basic degree in land economics. I would have expected not just membership of the Institute of Surveyors of Kenya, but a higher qualification so that the 15-year experience as set out is considered in addition to other experiences or other qualifications that would ensure that the chief government valuer is an individual who will deliver professionally, as has been spoken to previously, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the additional valuation role for properties that are omitted, I think this is key, because what this states is to ensure that every property, including properties that have now not been registered, are matrix, so that we do not have owners of property who would then escape the valuation dragnet or the payment of taxes because their properties are not registered. Mr. Speaker, I know that in my own county, Kisumu, in the Kisumu city, for instance, I know that a new valuation process is ongoing. And I know that citizens are concerned about the values that have been placed on the properties. I also know that in my other city, Nakuru, there are several objections that have been raised by owners of property pursuant to valuations that have been done under the framework of law that currently exists. And what this national rating bill or act bill portends, Mr. Speaker, is a framework that will be consultative, that will give rateable landowners an opportunity to object as they should, Mr. Speaker, but also, Mr. Speaker, it increases the time frame required, but ensures that no property is left out of the evaluation process. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Professor Tom, for your contribution. And honorable members, now that we do not have any other member interested in contributing to this, I will ask the mover of the motion to reply to the motion. Senator Beatrice Akinyi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, once more for the opportunity and the discussion of the rating, the national rating bill. Honorable Speaker, before I beg to reply, Honorable Speaker, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the Ndiwa community from where I come from, and in reference to just the presidential nominations for state appointments, to congratulate one very senior outstanding officer that has been nominated by His Excellency the President, Major General Retired Martin Kizito Ong'oi, CBC, has been nominated as a member of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission as a nominee of the Defense Council. Honorable Speaker, this is what Kenyans have been yearning for. And I think we are going to the right direction. Major Retired General Ong'oi has been an outstanding officer in this republic, serving in the army. And Honorable Speaker, I stand here to congratulate him and to state that Major Retired deserves and is equal to the task. Honorable Speaker, I now beg to reply. And in replying, I want to appreciate all the honorable senators who have contributed in this motion. Actually, it's a motion of a great contribution to Kenyans. I beg to reply, and Honorable Speaker, I request that the putting of question be deferred to a later date pursuant to Article 66, Standing Order 66(3). Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Now, honorable senators, I now put, I defer the putting of the question pursuant to the request under Standing Order 66 by the honorable to the next session of this House. Clerk, I'll ask you to, that was interrupted on Thursday, 31st of October, 2024, and during this period, Senator Dr. Boni Halwale had 13 minutes that was remaining from his time to conclude on his contribution to the motion. And I'll call upon Senator Boni Halwale if you still have got any additional comments on this motion to conclude within the timeline that you had as remaining time for you, 13 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yes, before we went on recess, I was on this motion. I had not anticipated that it would come this afternoon, so I have not recollected my thoughts. But this is an important point, that over and above what I said before we went on recess, this issue of bursaries is actually promoting corruption. Not corruption by the MPs who control or by the governors, but the people working in their infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, corruption to this extent. Our women, mothers of our children at school, our old men, they are forced to queue for forms in the name of collecting forms that will enable them to access bursaries, and after waiting for a very long time, a list then appears at the constituency bursary office, and when the old man goes there, the name of his child is not there. Mr. Speaker, when mama goes there, her child is not there. They do not understand why their children are not benefiting. Mr. Speaker, when you follow it in some of the offices, the administrators of that fund, the bursary fund, ask for a consideration before people benefit from this public resource. Mr. Speaker, it is for this reason that many people are agreed that the billions of shillings held in the accounts of CDF as bursaries, held in presidential bursary fund, Mr. Speaker, held, Mr. Speaker, in the governor's bursary fund and all other funds that support children, including Equity Bank and Flying Wings and what have you. All this money should just be surrendered to the National Treasury, and we make education free that can be accessed by all children. Mr. Speaker, like many Kenyans who had to walk the steep hill to have their education financed, the first time, Mr. Speaker, I had peace of mind at school was when I went to the University of Nairobi and I found that university education was free. The moment that happened, Mr. Speaker, I quickly forgot the pain I used to go through whenever I would be sent out of class so as to go home to look for school fees, which was not at home. Mr. Speaker, my home to my school, Kakamega High School, is exactly 15 kilometers. And when I used to be asked to go home, to come back with school fees at Kakamega High School, I would do that 15 kilometers on foot. I reach at home, time for 2-3 days, walk back, of course, without school fees, pretend dodge in school until another wave of sending children home comes, and I go back. I truly want to thank God that on some occasions, whenever I could come back from home, Mr. Speaker, with 25 shillings collected after my mother had sold changa, my teachers would gracefully accept the 25 shillings and allow me a few more days in school. And I was lucky at Kakamega High School. I met a gentleman called Mr. Peter Wells. Peter Wells was teaching me chemistry at A level. And purely because of the luck God gave me, because I was doing very well in his class, he got tired of me being sent away and then took over and educated me in the year of Form 6 because of my performance in chemistry. And thanks to him, I made it in chemistry and mathematics, Mr. Speaker, and biology, and became a doctor. So we are killing very many brilliant young people because of asking them to pay. I want to appeal to our president to read tonight the story of Mwai Kibaki. The biggest thing that Mwai Kibaki gave our children was when, Mr. Speaker, he made education free. And by dint of making education free, he brought 1 million children into school who had just been lying idle at home. Over the weekend, Mr. Speaker, I was talking to the governor of Nairobi, His Excellency Sakaja, and Sakaja told me something amazing. He told me because of 500 of free lunch, the parents are supposed to pay 500. Because of that 500, Sakaja told me 1.3 million children in Nairobi have come back into school. So the situation is so dire that we should never pretend. We should do everything possible to make sure that all the children of Kenya can access education for free. Mr. Speaker, I say this with maximum respect to the fact that the system, thank you, my time.
Senator Boni, you have equally been interrupted, a second time interrupted, but you still have got 7 minutes of your time remaining when the House resumes to conclude on your remarks. And now, Honorable Senators, it's now 6:30 p.m., time to adjourn the Senate. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 13th of November, 2024 at 9:30 a.m.